If you're tired of losing your crochet hook, I've got just the solution for you. This case is designed to hold your hook so you can keep your crochet hook close to you at all times. This case is also designed to have a nice grip on the sides so you won't have to worry about your phone slipping off. I used my iPhone 15 for this tutorial, but I'll talk you through the steps so that you can use the same techniques to fit your own phone model. I also have a premium pack with extra designs, a foundation chain calculator, and an interactive navigation system on the written pattern. The main tutorial is free, so think of the premium pack as a bonus to enhance the experience. The premium pack is available on my Ko-fi store, which I'll link on the description. I'll be revealing the extra designs at the end of the video, but for now, let's focus on this crochet hook holder phone case. For this project, I'm using a 50% cotton and 50% acrylic fingering weight yarn. I'm also using a 2mm crochet hook and a transparent phone case. If you're using a different material, I would recommend using a smaller hook than the recommended size because the tighter stitches help in creating a nice grip on the sides of the case. The tighter stitches also create more structure and stiffness that helps in holding the shape of the phone case. I also highly recommend using this as an accessory piece over a clear protective case. That way you can keep your phone safe and protected. And if you're like me and you want to have different options to accessorize your phone, this sleeve is removable so you can switch between different options. Let's start by creating a foundation chain. This part is the first customizable part. The foundation chain should be equal to the width of your phone case. Different models will have different widths, so I prepared a foundation chain calculator in the premium pack to help you figure out what the chain number should be based on your gauge swatch and phone measurements. Another simple way to figure out your foundation chain number is to create chain stitches until it matches the width of your phone case. Mine was 24 stitches wide, and since we're using the linen or moss stitch, we'll add 2 more stitches, making a total of 26 chains. If you're using a different stitch, then you will need to add a different number of stitches. For example, you'll need to add 1 more for single crochets, 2 more for double crochets, and 3 for treble crochets. This part will depend on the stitch you want to use, but for this specific design, we'll add 2. To start your first row, insert your hook into the 4th chain from the hook and make a single crochet. Chain 1 and skip the next stitch. This will be our repeat. Create a single crochet into the stitch after the skipped stitch. Chain 1 and skip the next stitch. Repeat these stitches until the end of your row. I chose this stitch because I just know that creating single crochets in the foundation chain can really test a crocheter's patience. Because we're alternating between single crochets and chain 1s, it minimizes the amount of times you'll need to create a single crochet into the foundation chain. It's also my favorite stitch, but you can use whatever stitch you want. The last stitch should be a single crochet on the first chain stitch in the foundation chain. When you finish the first row, take a closer look at the stitches you've made. If you look closely, you'll see that there are gaps in between the single crochet stitches. For the rows ahead, we will be creating our stitch repeat in these spaces. To start the next row, chain 2 and turn your work. Insert your hook into the first gap. So if you look closely here, you'll see that there's a gap here and a single crochet right under the chain 2. So insert your hook into that gap and create a single crochet. Next, chain 1 and skip the stitch. If you're still feeling a bit confused about where to insert your hook, I'll tell you about how I learned how to make the stitch. Before you insert your hook in the gaps, just take a moment to look at the stitches. You'll see that there's a pattern of these vertical stitches. And you know when you draw a stick figure and you draw like a circle for the head and some lines for the body, I think these stitches kind of look like the legs of a stick man, so that's how I always see it in my head. And that's why I also like to call the vertical stitches of these single crochets the legs of the stitches. The gaps are in between these stitches, so just look for the legs of the stitches and the gap should be right next to it. Another way you can find out if you're inserting your hook into the right space is that this space should feel like the easiest place to insert your crochet hook. So once you figure out the correct hook placement, just continue creating the stitch repeat until the end of the row. The last stitch can be easy to miss, so when you reach the end of the row, take a moment to look at your crochet piece. The last stitch should be a single crochet into the start of your first row. To make sure you didn't skip the stitch, you can either count the number of stitches and it should match the foundation chain number, which in my case is 24. Or you can eyeball it and see if the edges are neatly aligned. I'll show you one more row. To start the next row, always chain 2 and turn your work. At this point, the pattern of these stitches are clearer, so it's easy to see where you should be inserting your crochet hook. When you're creating your next rows, the placement of the single crochet should alternate in the same pattern you can see from the first and second row. It can also be helpful to create a few rows and just check if the crocheted piece covers the width of your phone case. Then, create more rows until you reach the bottom edge of your camera. In my case, I had to make 33 rows. To make space for the camera, we will create rows in the surrounding area. If your phone is like mine, place the crochet piece over the transparent case and mark the stitch that aligns with the right edge of the camera. Then continue creating rows only until the marked stitch. If your phone has a different camera, you can still use this technique, but you need to make a few changes so that it applies to your camera. The point of this step is to crochet over the surrounding area of the camera. So for example, if your phone camera is at the left, then you will need to mark the stitch at the left edge of the camera and create rows ending at the marked stitch. If your phone case is at the center, then you will need to create the rows one side at a time until you reach the height of your camera. So for now, create rows to cover the surrounding area until it matches the height of your camera. After creating a few rows, place the crochet piece over the transparent case just so you can compare the two and get an idea of how many rows you need to keep creating. This next step is optional. To create the camera hole, we will need to create chain stitches that goes around the camera. For this to work, the last stitch should be going in the direction of the camera. In case yours is like mine where the last stitch ends at the opposite side, what I'm gonna do is just frog that last row. Then I'm going to create a new row starting at the opposite end so that the stitches will end up going into the direction of the camera. I say this part is optional because there's a chance where your last row will end exactly where it needs to be. The next step only applies for phones with cameras at the corners. Next, count the numbers of stitches that the bottom edge of the camera hole has, including the slip stitches. In my case, it's 12. So chain 12 and mark the 12th stitch. We will create a decrease into this stitch later on when creating the sides. Next, count the number of rows you created from the bottom of the edge to the top edge of the case. For this model, we will need 10. Then, attach these chain stitches to the corner with a slip stitch. If your camera is placed in the middle of your phone, you can use the same technique as how the charger port hole is made to create the camera hole, which is later in the tutorial. Now we'll create the sides. Start with the chain 1, and before we create any stitches, I just want to show you guys the hook placement for this part. So if you turn the side of the piece towards you, you'll see that the rows alternate between a single crochet and these vertical side loops made from the chain 2. We'll be creating our single crochets and decrease into these side loops. For the rows with single crochets, we'll use the side loops made from the back of the single crochet stitch. So if you turn your work around, you'll see that the back stitch of the single crochet is kind of peeking through to the sides. So the reason we do this is because it creates a neater appearance. I'll show you what I mean later on, but for now, insert your hook into that side loop and create a single crochet. This next part is crucial for your case to have a nice grip. A decrease is made when you insert your hook and pull up a loop in the same way you would make a single crochet. We will instead start a new single crochet into the next stitch. So insert your hook, then yarn over and pull through all loops. So for the sides to have a nice grip, our repeat will be 2 single crochets and 1 decrease. So it's like 3 stitches that we will repeat over and over throughout the row. So that's 2 single crochets, and in the video I have my second single crochet. In the next one we'll do a decrease, so insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through all loops on your hook. And that is the stitch repeat of this row. I created the repeat a few times, and now I want to show you what I mean with the edges looking neater. If you look closely, you'll see that the shape of the stitch is consistent throughout the rows. The hook placement makes sure that the single crochets at the edge keeps both the legs of the stitch. So now I want to show you what it would look like if the hook placement was different. I'm going to insert my hook into the front stitch of the single crochet at the edge and pull it away. The detail this hook placement creates is inconsistent with the rest of the stitches in the row because it pulls away one of the legs of that last stitch. So instead of 2 vertical bars, there's only 1, which takes away the definition of the stitch. It's honestly a minor detail, but it is my favorite stitch, so I use it a lot, and I find that this technique is just what makes it look the best. For the first row of the sides, just continue creating the stitch repeat of 2 single crochets and 1 decrease on every 3rd stitch. We will be creating decreases in the corner as well, but if you find yourself near the end of the row and the repeat doesn't perfectly finish at the decrease, it's fine. These stitches are purely for functionality. So for example, my last stitch is supposed to be a decrease, but it's too close to the corner, so I made a single crochet instead. The corner decreases should point towards the center for a cleaner look, so I designed this in a way where the corner decreases are only at the top and bottom edge of the case. For the right corners, the decrease is made by inserting your hook into the corner stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. One more time, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. There should be 4 loops on your hook. Then you can close it by yarning over and pulling up a loop to all the loops on your hook. After this decrease, continue creating the repeat of 2 single crochets and a decrease in the next 2 stitches. The stitch pattern of this row is different from the sides, but the hook placement is more straightforward. Just so it's easier to create your crochet stitches, insert your hook into the same space as the single crochets and into the skip stitches. The decrease of the left corner, which is at the end of the row, will start at the 3rd stitch before the end of the row. In the same way we created a decrease as the right corner decrease, create a decrease into the next 3 stitches, ending at the corner stitch. Then, insert your hook into the same stitch and continue creating the repeat of 2 single crochets and a decrease on every 3rd stitch. Once you reach the top edge, you will need to create the corner decreases in the same way. So for the right corner, we will start with the corner stitch, and we will create a decrease using the next 2 stitches. Then, continue the stitch repeat of 2 single crochets and 1 decrease. Since the left corner is made with chain stitches, it's hard to identify the corner by just looking at it. The stitch we marked earlier is the left corner of the case. For the left corner, remember that the decrease will start on the 3rd stitch before the end of the row. The decreases should end at the corner stitch that we marked. Then, continue creating the repeat until your last stitch. Again, this repeat is purely functional, so your last stitch may or may not end exactly at the 3rd decrease, but it's fine because it won't be noticeable later on. After creating your last stitch, use an invisible finish for a seamless edge. This will keep things neat for later on when we continue creating the sides. To do this, pull up your working yarn and cut. Insert your hook under the chain stitch of the first stitch we created. Then, wrap the loose end on your hook and pull through. If you pull the loose end, you will see that it is coming out of the last stitch of the row. To create a seamless chain look, insert your hook into the same chain space as where the loose end is coming from. Then, wrap the loose end on your hook and pull through. Don't worry about weaving in this loose end for now because later on in the next row, we can weave it in as we go. At this point, the decreases we made will cause the case to curl. This is a good sign that it will have a nice grip on the sides. Next, place the crochet piece over your phone case. Align the edges together and identify the stitch that lines up with the right edge of the charger port. Mark the stitch because this is where the next row will end to create a charger port hole. Start the next row in the stitch that aligns with the left edge of the charger port. With the slip knot on your hook, insert your hook into the stitch, and then yarn over and pull up a loop into that slip knot and create a single crochet in every stitch around this row. For this tutorial, I'm only going to show you how to make a charger port hole, but different phone models may have different features on the sides of the phone, so you can customize using this technique to create additional holes on the sides if you need. As we're creating this row, you will encounter the loose end from the first row. Simply place it over the chain stitches and crochet over this loose end. We can weave as we go by creating the single crochet stitch as normal, and closing the loose end with the last stitch where we yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. The last stitch of this row should be at the mark stitch. You will need to create more rows depending on the thickness of your phone. I would also recommend making this charger port hole a little bit bigger just so the case doesn't get in the way when you're charging your phone. So chain 1, turn your work and create a single crochet in every stitch. Repeat this row until you reach the top edge of the charger port. For this design, I had to make 3 rows before closing the top of the charger port hole. Once you reach the top edge of the charger port, create the same number of stitches as the width of the charger port. In this case, mine is 3, so chain 3 and attach it onto the next side with a slip stitch, creating a hole for the charger port. Next, chain 1, turn your work and create a single crochet in every stitch. I tried to see if the crochet piece fully covered the case and found that I needed one more row because the sides weren't fully covered. Depending on the thickness of your phone, you may need to add additional rows. Once the crochet piece fully covers the case, chain 1 and create a slip stitch in every stitch to secure the shape. Then mark the first slip stitch. The tighter the stitches, the tighter this row will be. We don't need it that tight because you might find trouble putting the crochet piece onto the case. I made my slip stitches a little bit loose by pulling the loops into the thickest part of my crochet hook. Based on my testers' feedback, this part can also be replaced by creating the decrease repeat we used earlier, so that's 2 single crochets and a decrease in every third stitch. To end this row, we will slip stitch into the first stitch to complete this piece. Remove the stitch marker at the first stitch, insert your hook into that first stitch, and slip stitch to complete this piece. So after you slip stitch, just pull up the working yarn and cut, and you will have created the first piece of this phone case. You can pull up a much longer loose end if you're using a darning needle to weave this in, but for me, I chose to keep it short, and I turned the piece inside out, and I weaved in this end in the inside part of the phone case. Next, we will clean up the camera hole by creating a single crochet border around the camera hole. To start, insert your hook somewhere in the middle of the edge. Then, take your working yarn and grab it with your hook and pull it through. Chain 1 to start. Then, create a single crochet in every stitch, going around until you come back to the first stitch. Then, use the invisible finish method to create a seamless edge. After the first stitch, pull up the yarn and cut. Insert your hook into the first chain created and pull the loose end through. Then, insert your hook in the last stitch where the loose end is coming from and pull it through. Weave the end from behind the case into the single crochets of the linen or moss stitch. And once you have finished this, you will have finished creating a phone case. The next step will be to create the crochet hook holder. Next, we'll be creating the hook holder. For this part, you can figure out your desired crochet hook height by placing it on top of the case. Count the number of rows from the bottom to your desired height, then whatever that number is, we will subtract 2, and that will be the foundation chain number. The reason we're subtracting 2 is because the bottom edge of this piece will be crocheted in the round twice. This edge will extend downwards, which is the same length as 2 rows. For me, I needed it to be 30 rows tall, so 30 minus 2 is 28. So I'll start with a foundation chain of 28. Then, chain 1 to start the first row. Next, insert your hook into the second loop from the hook. This is where you will create your first single crochet. For the first row, create a single crochet in every stitch. At the end of the first row, chain 1 and turn your work. For row 2, create a single crochet in every stitch similar to the first row. We will start the rounded edge in this row at the end of the row. At the end of the row, insert your hook into the side loop of the first row. Create 3 single crochets in the same stitch. After creating 3 single crochets in the same stitch, create a single crochet in every stitch at the bottom of the first row. You will need to insert your hook into the bottom loops of the first row, which is the same chain spaces where your first single crochet row was made. At the end of this row, you will see that the chain stitches will go around the piece. To weave in this loose end as you go, you can pull it through the first chain stitch of your next row. Chain 1 to start the next row and repeat the process. Create a single crochet in every stitch. Remember when we created 3 single crochet stitches at the side loop? Find the middle stitch of this increase and create 3 single crochets as well to round off the edge. Then, continue creating a single crochet on every stitch until the end. After this row, create a single crochet on the flat edge of the piece, which is the opposite of the rounded edge for a neater appearance. Then, use the invisible finish method to create a seamless finish. The final part of this design is attaching the hook holder piece to the phone case. First, lay the piece onto your phone case and position it at an angle you like. You may temporarily secure it with a safety pin. If you like sewing, you can simply sew the hook holder piece onto the case by following the chain stitches. However, I think most crocheters prefer not to sew, which is why I designed this piece to be attached using slip stitches. To attach using slip stitches, insert your hook into the first stitch of the hook holder. With your hook in the first stitch, insert your hook through the case as well. With your hook in these two pieces, create a slip knot on your hook from behind the pieces. Pull the slip knot through both pieces. Make sure it's not too tight. Now, let's create our first slip stitch. Insert your hook into the next chain of the hook holder piece and through the case. The working yarn will be below the piece, so just hold on to that working yarn with your other hand. From under the piece, yarn over and pull up a loop. The loop will pop out through the pieces. Then, pull the loop into the first loop to create a slip stitch. Using this technique, we will be securing the hook holder piece one stitch at a time. When I was practicing with this technique, I found that there is some trouble because the phone case covers the working yarn. So just listen to the feeling of yarning over, or you can also slightly turn your work to see what's going on underneath. This technique is similar to tambour beading, so if you know how to do that, it might be more familiar to you. But if it's totally new to you, just take it easy and go slowly. I'm sure you can figure it out, just create it one stitch at a time. After the last stitch, pull up the yarn and cut. Then, pull the loose end into the back of the phone for a neater appearance. Then, weave in your loose ends into the single crochets of the moss or linen stitch. And there you go, you have created your very own crochet hook holder phone case. I'd really appreciate it if you guys helped each other in the comments, so if you had to make any changes or tweaks to some parts because of your phone model, please share what these changes are, and I'm sure it will help others who have the same model as you. Okay, so now that we're at the end of the video, I want to show you guys a preview of the premium pack. Aside from the interactive navigation system and the foundation chain calculator I prepared, I also prepared a few designs for you. This first design is an extension of the main tutorial where the edge of the hook holder has a contrasting edge. I'm calling it the outline. The second design is a heart-shaped Polaroid picture holder, which I'm calling the love letter. This next design is what I call the lucky star, which is a free-form star patch where I will teach you how you can make your own unique star. The last design is a pocket, which comes in a few versions: a simple pocket, a flap pocket, and a flap pocket with a thumb lock. I'm naming this last design the Alchemy phone case because the lock matches with the bag I designed of the same name. I feel like the main tutorial is quite personal because you're making the phone case for yourself, but the additional designs are something you can use to mix and match with your friends. One idea that I think would be really cool is if you and your friends draw stars, and based on their drawing, you can use the freeform star pattern to match the shape of their drawing. These designs use the same technique as the hook holder piece, so if you learn one, it's easy to learn the others. The premium pattern will be available on my Ko-fi. The link is in the description. I hope you enjoyed creating this phone case. Also, huge shout out to my testers. Thank you for all your time and effort into helping me improve this pattern. If you'd like to stay updated with future patterns and projects, follow @summerforever.co on TikTok and Instagram. You can also tag us and use #SummerForeverPhoneCase for a chance to be featured in our feed. Thanks for crocheting with me today. I can't wait to see how you'll make this design uniquely yours.